Good evening and welcome everyone. Now calling to order the City of Cape Canaveral's Community Appearance Board meeting of May 29th, 2019. Patsy, can you please call the roll?
Bob Neenstadt,
Present.
Jalinda Coudray,
Present.
Elena Whitehead,
Present.
Randy Wasserman.
Present. Thank you, Patsy, I appreciate it. We're gonna, next, before we take up any of the agenda items, have to just make sure we swear in anyone who plans to speak on behalf of an application this evening. If you plan to do so, can you stand now if possible and raise your right hand? Sorry.
Do you hereby swear or affirm that the testimony that you're going to give this evening is the truth?
Thank you both. And if I'm not coming through loud, just let me know. I want to remind members too to make sure you're speaking to the mic when you're speaking here. So we've got a meeting today. So we haven't met in a couple months. Couple items on the agenda. First off is the approval of the meeting minutes from March 20th, 2019, just a couple months ago when we met last. Board members, I encourage you to take a look at them. I know if they weren't in our packet, it was a late arrival, so they've got them on the table in front of us. Have the members present had a chance to go ahead and read these? It's fairly brief. Members have any questions about the minutes?
No. I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the March 20th meeting.
I'll second that motion. All in favor of that motion to approve the minutes from the March 20th, 2019 meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Those minutes are passed. So we next have on the order of new business interviewing of a couple potential new board members. If the potential board members or anyone else doesn't have any objections, I'd like to hear the item 3 agenda item first. I tend to like to do that. It gives potential board members a chance to see the board in operation if you haven't done so already. And then if you have any subsequent questions while we're chatting later on, I'll give you the opportunity to do so. So if there's no objections, I'd like to take up item 3 next. All right, so then item 3 is a review an action regarding the level and application consistent with Chapter 22 of Article 3 of the Code of Ordinances for a City of Cape Canaveral's multi-generational facility at 7920 Orange Avenue. So, Mr. Dave, if you'd prefer, we'd like to hear your staff report if you're
Sure.
so inclined.
That'd be great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
And good evening, everybody. It's nice to see you. Let's start with a few pictures, as we always do. I'm sure all of you are very familiar with this piece of property. This is the city park. And as you can see, the area designated in that lime green is going to be the approximate location of the multi-generational facility. And we'll get into a little bit more of a detailed site plan here in a few minutes, but that just kind of gives you an overall feel for the property and how it's situated in that kind of near community, near neighborhood. Obviously, as you know, north is kind of going up to the top of the screen, and we have some existing ball fields on the piece of property. As we get into the narrative, you'll hear that clay court, kind of on the south end of the lime green area, is going to be going away. You'll see what that's going to be replaced with here shortly. And then the other court, field right here, will be maintained. And also the other things that'll be demoed, there's a basketball court here. That'll be demoed. And Gustavo, is that building still there? No, sir. Okay, I thought that had been removed. So that has already been removed from the site. All right. Okay, I wanted to kind of give you a sense of the immediate area surrounding the piece of property. And again, I apologize if I'm sure you're all very familiar with it, but I think it just kind of helps. This is up in the northwest. The first photo that we're going to see is right here, looking north. So we're looking up that direction, up the street. The next picture we're going to look at will be from this intersection. And you can see what I'm doing here. The next one will be from that intersection, and the final picture will be from this intersection. Okay, so first picture. Looking north, and you can see that it's I'm going to call it a mixed bag when it comes to residential uses with respect to the structures themselves. There are a number of single-family residences, single-story, single-family residences. You can also see from this photo that immediately north of the property, right here, is a two-story multifamily project. Okay, next picture is over from the northeast corner of the property. And you can see again that there's there's a lot of multifamily, two-story multifamily properties over here to the east between the park and the beach. Get into a lot of two-story properties there. This is down at the southeast corner of the property, looking north. And again, multifamily, two-story development. And this is over on the southwest corner of the property. We're looking across, we're kind of looking, I'm going to say almost northeast. And we're looking across that clay ball field that I mentioned to you is going to be demoed as part of this project. You can see to the west of the property, which we're kind of looking here onto your left there, over in this area are some single-story, single-family homes. And this is up in the northeast corner of the property. We're kind of looking southeast. And this is the basketball court that I mentioned earlier that's going to be demoed as part of this project. And the multi-generational facility will be sitting basically about where this that building that has been demolished used to be located, about right there. So that'll kind of give you a sense of where the multi-generational facility is going to be located. Okay. The next several slides are going to be colored elevations or colored renderings of the building. And you can see here is the south and the west elevations. And the south elevation, which is on the top of the piece of paper that we're looking at, the upper elevation, is going to be what I would characterize as the main entrance to the building. And you'll see once we get to the site plan how it's oriented on the piece of property. But it's pretty innovative and it's pretty interesting. We've got some, I'll call them living walls. If we're all familiar with those, there's one here, and one here, and one here, which is actually pretty cool. I think it's really quite interesting. We've got a very significant entrance feature here with an arched design element, which really draws the eye, I believe. On the west elevation, again, another living wall. We've got some curvilinear lines here. We have a number of various materials that are being used. You can see, obviously, there's glass and there's going to be stucco. Here we have the north and the east elevations. Again, some additional living walls. As well as on the north elevation, we have some murals, which my understanding is will be commissioned and will be actually done by local artists, and those will depict local scenes of significance. Again, additional curvilinear lines here. There's also the curvilinear line. You can see the separation of the, I'll call it the dark green material in the lighter stucco here, as well as up here in the north elevation. The next sheet includes the elevation of the entrance sign. Again, more curvilinear elements, nicely landscaped. Here you can see where this is the entrance, I'll call it one of the main two entrances onto the property, here and here. It is being connected via a promenade, which is going to be heavily landscaped. It's going to be quite a very nice feature. It'll be visually very aesthetic. It'll be aesthetically pleasing. It's also going to have two, I'll call them significant design elements associated with it. This one right here, as well as the entrance into the building. And we can come back and talk about these if you have specific questions. I'm going to more than likely defer to the professionals here that are sitting right behind me.
No problem.
There is also a new restroom facility that's going to be located on the east side of the property, about midway. And this sheet indicates the location as well as the materials and the color that are being proposed. And here's the northern half of the site plan. And let me just point out a few what I would view as significant features. Here we have basically the location of the current basketball court. There's going to be some on-site parking there, which is immediately south of that will be the multi-generational facility itself. Again, it's a two-story structure, approximately 23,800 square feet in size. You can see from the site plan, it does include a gym, as well as various classrooms. And you can see how the building itself is situated relative to the internal movement of folks who are there visiting. They'll be able to, again, as I indicated earlier, they'll be able to access the site both from the east and the west sides of the property. We've got some on-site retention, detention areas, and you can see these areas here that are shown with the various elevations. This is the location of the restroom that we just looked at. If I can get my magic wand here to move. I believe Gustavo right here, Todd? Okay, yeah. So you can kind of have a sense of where that is situated relative to the rest of the property. Also, we're going to have, I'll call it street parking. You can see it's both on the east, west, north, and there'll also be additional street parking on the south. This is the landscaping plan on the northern half, and again, for purposes of kind of moving this along, I did not include the stuff on the south side because it's not changing a great deal. That'll be the location of future phases of the park. And I discussed those briefly in the agenda report, the staff report that's included that you've had a chance to take a look at. If there's any specific questions on the landscaping, we'll have somebody is here to respond to those, but that gives you a sense of what's being proposed. And that's it. I'm going to go back to the rendering, and Mr. Chairman, I'm going to hit some of the highlights of my staff report.
Oh, please.
And then we can turn it over from questions. Again, this is a level 1 approval request, which is required by City Code, Section 22, for the development of a 23,837 square foot multi-generational facility and associated improvements. The subject parcel is owned by the City of Cape Canaveral, is 5 acres in size, and is zoned R2. The proposed use is consistent and allowed in the R2 zoning district and meets all of the dimensional requirements of the R2 zoning. As I indicated earlier, this is the first phase of this project. Future phases may include splash pad and possible skate park, but there's nothing currently, I'll say, on the books for that. That'll all be subject to budgetary considerations of the City Council and in future budgetary processes. The application, again, is consistent with the R2 dimensional requirements. It shows 112 parking spaces. Proposed structure meets all of the setback requirements, and proposed landscaping meets minimum requirements. The real reason we're here this evening is to talk about the level 1 request, which, as this board is aware of, is required of all new development, especially development of this scale and scope. And as we discuss at each of the meetings, there are 6 items that the board needs to be cognizant of and keep in mind when you're considering a request. And I've taken the liberty of going through each one of those and responding specifically to each one of the criteria. I think for purposes of keeping this moving along, I won't read all of those, but I just want to make sure for the record that it's known that there are responses to each one of these criteria. And I will say in summary that the proposed redevelopment of the site does meet the applicable criteria that are included in the city code. The other thing I want to mention briefly is that the property is not within the A1A overlay district, so we kind of take all of those things off the table, or we would. However, because this is going to be a significant project for the city, and we really, as a city, we really do want to set the example and set the bar. And so the architects have included a number of the overlay district design requirements in this project. And I know that since you've had a chance to read through the agenda report, you can see which ones I've called out specifically. And they will look familiar to you because we do talk about these with projects in the overlay district. But just a point is that although not required to meet these standards, this particular structure does. And given all that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to read our recommendation to approve the Level 1 application for the multi-generational facility located at 7920 Orange Avenue as depicted in Attachment 3. And very briefly, I'll just quickly run through the attachments. Attachment 1 is a location map, which the audience saw on the first slide. Location 2 is the actual application prepared as part of this process. And then attachment number 3 is the site plan colored renderings, which you have in front of you, which you previously provided. That concludes my presentation, Mr. Chairman. If I can answer any questions, I certainly will do so. If there are any, also I may be deferring to our panel of experts sitting right behind me. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I thank you for the very thorough report and concise information. I am happy to see the city taking initiative to propose a facility like this that, even though it's not within the A1A overlay district, really not only follows in spirit but quite in letter. From at least the renderings we're seeing, the kind of products we're looking to see and the kind of developments we're looking to see. I've got a couple questions. I'd like to first let board members relay any questions, or if you haven't, anyone have any questions for me?
I have a couple questions. One, why did we take the basketball court out, and is it being put back in somewhere? That's of a high use. I noticed that when I go by, it's being used. Was it?
It looked like there was one in the facility, right?
Yeah,
Or
I'll
is
take
it-
a stab at that.
We
There
have a
is,
gym.
there
We have
there
a
is
gym.
a full-size court, basketball court in the new facility, which will be able to be used year-round versus,
Rain
I'll
and
tell you what,
shine.
if I tried to play basketball this weekend, I would probably be
Right,
this
right,
big.
right.
So,
What are
Yeah.
the hours of that? It'll
Right,
only
because-
be- Because the kids are playing all the time. I don't
Exactly,
know if
and
they're
there might
supposed
be
to be, but.
Classes
Yeah.
and stuff there.
Well,
I'm gonna ask Gustavo Vergara, our Parks and Leisure Services Director, to
So I'm
stand.
just going to remind the board members too that,
It's
we're,
not our jurisdiction.
yeah, we're
Really,
going
it
to,
was,
I mean,
but I'm just as, okay, yeah, exactly.
I'll entertain it on
Okay.
a slight basis. If you'd like to share any information on that, that's okay.
We can just talk about it later, that's fine, because
We,
it
that's,
isn't,
that's
but-
fine. We can just, if the chairman is okay with that, we.
No, I'm okay pursuing it to a slight degree, just for information.
Yeah, although an operational issue, as you said, as of right now, we have the staff to hopefully support the same hours we do at the Nancy Hansen Recreation Complex, which ideally would be 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Thursday, probably till 6 to 8 on Fridays. It'll all be determined on use, obviously, because if we have a building with nobody in it, then we won't operate it that late on a Friday and Saturdays. As of now, and again, we're 18 months away, there's no, Sundays are going to be closed. Does that answer?
Thank you.
I have one question about the design. So it's stucco and glass. So what type of glass is being used to prevent heat load and so forth coming in there? I mean, I imagine, I've been in so many storefronts, tire dealerships, automobile dealerships, and that sun comes through. It's just unbearable. I've been in grocery stores, and it's just the design and the layout and so forth. So I was wondering what was taken into, is it a special glass that's going to be used to keep the...
Probably energy efficient.
Who'd like to respond to that one? All right.
Jen, just make sure, do we need,
I'm John Zwick with
Okay.
Architects RZK.
thank you. I wasn't sure if we had to state your name or not, but yeah.
The question is a little bit difficult to answer, but I will tell you that probably in all of the locations that you've been in, they weren't built per the new code. And the new code is rapidly becoming more and more energy efficient. I mean, the buzzword is green buildings, low energy footprint that we leave behind. So, I mean, this is a building in Florida, and we want to make sure there's plenty of nice daylight in there. But the glazing, of course, is going to be shaded in the new coefficient for the new code and reflective in a manner that it's going to significantly cut back on the heat load. Now, we also have, and it wasn't shown in this package, but we have an alternate or an option for what we call a cow wall. So that would reduce the amount of glass that you see through, but it would provide a panel that's even more insulated against solar heat gain, but still let in light. And there were some pictures of that on the board and Gustavo's grabbing that panel right now, and you can begin to see how thick that panel is
Yeah, okay.
from the side, and it reflects some of the heat, and it also insulates against it, so it's a very unique panel. And it's been around for years, and it just keeps getting better. So, and we put that in too to see if there's going to be a big difference in cost. So obviously, the city would probably lean toward the most cost efficient, depending upon, what the overall cost of the facility is. But does that answer your question enough? Okay.
That's a $1,000 panel. No.
That's hurricane proof but not Dave proof.
This is the roof material?
Yeah, that's the roof material.
No, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. When I saw that, I go, oh my gosh. But we've been waiting for so long for this to happen. We're all excited, and it's beautiful design. It's just, I can't wait to see it all, be completed.
Thank you. I just had a couple questions that popped to mind. Some more typical. Most applications I see, and others are a little more specific. The HVAC units for the facility, are they on the roof, or are they on the side of the building?
On the roof?
Okay.
I'll take that one again. The prime HVAC units are up on the flat roof because of the nature of this facility. There wasn't anywhere really to put them on the ground, but there's good access to them. And what we have up there is what they call a VRF system, variable refrigerant flow. So when you were asking Gustavo about occupancy of maybe the basketball court later at night, if there's plenty of people that want to play, the system is zoned enough that it will just cool that area more than another area. And it will only cool that area for the number of occupants that are in there. So the system ramps up, ramps down, and I guess to explain the system a little bit further, the kind of system you have at your house has a refrigerant in it, and it is a gas. It changes from a gas to a liquid from the outside to the inside and cools down. The new variable refrigerant flow takes a bigger unit like your outside unit, and it pipes this refrigerant flow to different units within the facility, and it can heat or it can cool based on what's going on in the facility. And it's very unique relative to the amount of duct work that you have to worry about for being cleaned, that sort of thing. And it's really catching on rapidly as a very efficient, very economical, easy to maintain system.
Sounds very dynamic. So just to make sure, though, someone from the road or a walkway would not be able to see that within the building's elevation. It's hidden from...
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have sat down. Yes, that's correct. I mean, unless you're up
In a drone or
up
something
on the
like that.
roof of
Yep.
one of those two-story residential buildings, or flying your drone over the facility, you're not going to see it.
Okay. Refuse area, is there
For
There's-
waste?
yes.
Oh, I thought you said rescue.
Oh, I'm sorry,
You said,
refuse.
yes, the stairs have rescue in case there's handicap up there. And yes, the facility has concealed but easily accessible dumpster locations.
Okay, so it'll be a dumpster? is
Yeah.
what okay, yeah. But it's concealed behind a fence or...
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, a wall and then the operable gate to access it.
Okay, looks like we're...
It right here?
Yeah, right there.
Okay, all right. So it's right on the north end, next to the road. Okay. So that's actually at the northern extremity of the parking lot, right?
Yes.
As it looks like? Okay. So it'll be a walled facility with a gate?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
It'll all be stuccoed, and it'll basically look like a small, it'll have the same design themes as or materials as the structure itself, the main structure.
Okay, and then actually you can leave it right on this slide here if you'd like. So it's going to be, the new facility is going to be right adjacent to what will be an existing ball field, correct?
Yes.
So how impervious, I know it's hurricane-proof and all, but how impervious is that eastern elevation to, balls that might get hit out of the park, shatterproof? I mean, it looks like a great facility, but it would be a shame if, 5 years from now it's got dings on it and it looks like someone hit it with a hammer because it gets, home run balls smacked against it. I'm trying to think if that's a possibility, but I'm just thinking in my mind, in the long-term appearance of the facility, could it be impacted by use of the ball field?
I really don't think so. I mean, it's going to be mostly stucco. The glazing on that side is higher up and really focused more on letting light into the gymnasium without impeding the use of the gymnasium, the players. And additionally, what you see there along that side of the building is a fan of different levels where somebody could actually sit on those levels and observe the baseball games. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Dave.
Right there.
Oh, so I see. So there is some elevation there. That's a berm?
Yeah,
Remember
that's
this?
kind of bermed up. You're right.
Okay.
Or stepped up is probably a better term.
So that's seating, right there.
It can be seating, that's
Or
correct.
just a walk.
It's a stepped wall feature.
Okay. But you don't anticipate having, any repair or maintenance issues with the adjacent use of the ball field in relation to
And I think the
overhit balls?
glazing, I think the glazing for the gymnasium is up so high that I doubt anybody would, Robert Redford, the natural. Did you see that movie?
A long time ago.
Yeah. He hit the ball up and it hit the lights,
Yeah.
busted, and then the field went dark and everybody was applauding. But no, I don't think that's gonna happen.
Okay. I'm just thinking, again, it's nice to see a great facility, but if 5 years from now it's got. Oh, sure. Yes, sir.
So that field at most is for minor A, 10 to 12-year-olds at most.
Oh, I see.
So yeah, it's not an adult softball. Adult softball's gone away, unfortunately. It's hard to get people to play, and we ended up in the city with only 4 teams, 3 of which played travel ball everywhere. So they just traveled anywhere where there was a league. They started having issues with the residents because they were hitting it outside of the big field. And so we said, you know what? It's really not worth the trouble to the residents to have to deal with these players coming from everywhere, hitting balls into their yards and everything. So if we have softball in the city, and if it happens to happen on this field, it's going to be a whole different style of softball called Chicago style, which is a 16-inch ball that's very soft. So they could hit it as hard as they can, and it won't travel that far. But it is designed for minor A baseball, which is little kids, and it just can't grow beyond that.
Okay. But there's no restrictions to somebody, when it's not in use for that purpose, just going in there and hitting the regular baseball, right? If they
Well,
wanted
we
to
do keep
use
it.
the
We
park.
do keep it locked. So if
Oh,
people
okay.
want to use it, they're allowed to use it for free, but we just don't leave it open.
Okay.
And with the USSSA, I'll give you a quick example. With the new USSSA stadium in Vieira, we're having teams stay here because it's close to the beach, and they'll hop that fence, and neighbors will call us because I try to establish rapport with everybody and say, hey, here's these guys hitting balls into my yard again, so we'll have to go out there. And so we're always very vigilant during the day of what's happening on the field.
Okay, so it sounds like the overall long-term risk to the facility is minimal, and its appearance will be maintained.
Yeah,
Regardless of the
absolutely.
use of the
And
facility.
we do have a plan, and it's not 100%, but we are thinking about moving the existing fence that's at the park on the softball field now. We put perimeter fencing in there. And at the time, it just created a bigger challenge for the adult players to try to hit it over that. But and then the hurricane came and made it sag a little bit. We haven't necessarily stood it up because we don't have softball any longer. But we're thinking of reusing that and perhaps putting it to protect the
As a
building.
physical barrier?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate you entertaining those questions. The final question I had was about the murals. Is that something we'd see down the road, or? Oh, sorry.
That's okay. So, as you know, obviously the city's growing, and we have a cultural programs manager. We just put out, in celebrating the 50 years in space, the first call for artists for the very first mural in the city. As far as a city-sponsored mural, as you know, I think the lamppost or somewhere and the VFW, there's already murals in the city.
There are.
But anyway, so the first call for artists in conjunction with this summer of space thing we're doing is going to happen in the existing racquetball courts. The thought is bringing public art to this building. And so that's when the designers came in, rather than just having big empty wall, would create mural space for perhaps Cape View, local artists, to continue on that public art program. As you can see, it's taken shape in things as little as bike racks throughout the city. I don't know if you've seen those very colorful, nice bike racks, but you know, so the transformer boxes are coming. There were a call for artists went out for that, and they were chosen. So that's coming to the city within the next few months. So those baffle boxes, you know, the wraps around the rain barrels at the community garden. So little by little, we're trying to just bring more art to the city.
That sounds great. Thank you again for fielding those questions, everyone. Board members have any additional questions after the several I posed?
I don't.
So,
I have one more, just.
oh, sure, Yolanda. Yeah, no problem.
Just one more on the plan. The circular paver closest to the multi-generational building is, I look at it on there and it looks like it's like some kind of a stage. But I look at it on here and it's just a round circle with pavers.
Yolanda, are we talking about this one right here?
Yes. So, I mean, I'm not, I guess I'm, what exactly is the half circle there?
It's a planter.
It's a planter?
Yes.
Okay, that is a planter, and so that's just a nice little area where you would just
Just
walk and
steps
sit.
So people can sit on
And are there gonna be chairs and benches and so forth around, Jay?
Well, they could sit on the edge of the planter, but that
They could?
planter is a reflection of the arch that you were looking through on the elevation.
Oh,
So it's, you know. it's like-
okay, yeah. Nice.
Anything else, Yolanda?
No, I apologize, I just, when the things that we got over, I couldn't read the legend when I was reviewing it and so forth.
I'd be lost without.
I wasn't able to, it
Are
wasn't
the-
large enough.
Are these larger ones better?
These are a lot better.
Okay. Well, we'll make sure we'll, in the future, you get those bigger sheets. Note, Miss Patsy.
I mean, they probably could have blown it, I probably could have blown it up somehow, I didn't know how to do it.
Any questions or comments from anyone in the audience regarding this application? Yes, sir, Mr. Rocky.
Thank you for recognizing me, Mr. Chair. I'm Rocky Randalls, and I have the privilege of being on the city council. David, if you could go back to that photo of the outdoor bathroom. And I guess my question is to the architect behind, could we enhance that a little bit? It seems like I grew up with one just like that 60 years ago. I know it's a set in place and it's a modular that comes in and it just kind of, today it comes on a truck and tomorrow you use it. But could you do some enhancements with that animal?
You can always do enhancements with it, but I think too that, so everybody understands that, for example, along the right-hand side of that plan, all of that is concrete. I mean, even the siding is out of concrete or stucco to look like normal siding. So it's the paint colors that are making it more attractive. I'm not sure if the facility, if they make this with a flat roof. Do they make it with a flat roof? They do. I mean, we could put a flat roof on like the main facility and then do something with the siding with some colors or something.
I think as Councilmember Randall stated, this will be the first thing that goes in the park. And the reason for that is that once construction starts, the existing restroom, which if you've ever been in there, I don't know if any of you folks have been in those restrooms, but right now there is a single female lockable restroom and a male that you can go in that has a urinal on a stall. So what we're doing here is we're installing four multi-use stalls that can be used, and that's what we've done at Banana River Park, and it's worked out great if you've been out there. So here's what I'll say about that building. It's all contingent on how much money you want to spend on it. So for what we thought would meet aesthetics and functionality, this thing is going to withstand the use and abuse that Canaveral City Park sees on a daily basis. We wanted to make sure that it was just, like John said, complete concrete, everything inside stainless steel, just very functional. If at some point council, because these are prefabricated buildings that can be purchased to be as beautiful as you want them to be. So we thought this would just be functional, yet within budgetary constraints of meeting the facility and the use that it's going to maintain. But this company has a lot of models. Now, again, there's also part of the exfiltration project that's taking place right next to this. There's a big vault being put right under it. So there are restrictions on the size of the building that can be put on there. So to meet the needs, I can reach out to the company. I don't know, where we're at on that for aesthetics, but we just thought that this was a building that would A, suit the purpose, and B, fit within the constraints of what we're doing money wise. There's a smaller building like this that Indian Harbor just bought 2 for all their restrooms. One's at Bicentennial Park and one is at Millennium Park, and they look really good. And theirs are half this size. Theirs are only 2 stalls. Ours is going to be 4 stalls with a chase inside, so maintenance can keep mop buckets and all that in it.
Yeah.
I think I understand what you're saying. It doesn't really seem to match the uniqueness and how cool the multi-generational building is. Is that what you're saying? The outside, the exterior, the elevation, you just don't think it's.
I'm sorry, were you speaking to me?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I
Yes,
need a
am
little
speaking
closer to the mic.
Yeah, okay, so you're saying that the exterior of the building is what you would like to match the uniqueness of the
It just seems like we've
multi-generational.
gone very elaborate with the
Exactly.
main building.
Yes.
And I hate to say, but I grew up with one of them.
Right. I saw that, and it kind of reminded me of a little, country bathroom type thing, and I thought, well, it's just functional. But when you look at the, beautiful building here, it does. But
Gustavo, will that be next to the existing Little League ballpark on the east side?
It's all the way on the eastern edge of the parcel, look like.
You don't have much room there, you're right.
No, and
yeah, it's like right there. It's,
and if you drive by, there's a big dugout we built there. Partly of, again, the reason we went with this building is we didn't have to pay an architect to design it. So, it's just nice that it's already designed. It's bomb-proof and incredibly functional, so.
Those are the realities we have to keep in mind as well.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
Yep, you have
yes.
to. Any other questions, comments from board members? Or
I was
anyone
just going to
else?
suggest that probably some landscaping would make it look a lot less dark and shed-like, yeah.
If that's the board's, this evening's wishes, again, assuming that this is going to move forward this evening, I mean, if you'd like staff to take a look at possible alterations to that building, we can do that, but I don't want to hold up the project and come back with another elevation. But if that's the wishes of the board, we can certainly take a look at that. And
Yeah, my intent certainly would not be to hold up this project. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that the Community Appearance Board approves the application for the multi-generational facility. With the encouragement that staff go ahead and consider options that are viable to perhaps enhance either through landscaping or another facility, the eastern parcel restroom there next to the dugout. And,
Understood.
I'm also going to, if Jen, if I can, I'm going to also recommend that the building department go ahead and manage the approval of the murals through their initiative to get community art, as long as they find the murals to be tasteful and within the bounds of what we intend to do with the facility.
So what you're suggesting then is future mural. Right now, our code says that
For this project.
For this project.
For this project.
That those murals would not come to this board. They would just be administered through staff. Is that what you're suggesting?
Similar to what we've done in the past with a road sign or some other, I'm not sure if that's a potential.
I'm just concerned about if there's going to be any process by which people get to choose what kind of art is
Well,
up there, you know?
So there's a motion, I guess, before.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Do you want me to address the wall mural mention? Okay, as far as the, what the code explicitly provides is that a wall mural is strictly prohibited on the exterior of any building, within the city unless it's approved under the community appearance review. So I don't think that.
So the description of the murals is too vague to be able to provide approval then, in terms of the
Mr.
community
Chairman, I
art.
think Mr. Vergara has a comment on this issue.
Just to be clear, it was our intent until you said something to come to you, because there will be a call for artists, and it will all be, it'll evolve as the building is being built. The call for artists will go out. You guys will have a chance to opine on the murals, just as you will have a chance to opine on this upcoming one at the racquetball courts. So, yeah, we're going to follow the
Okay.
code,
Well,
absolutely.
yeah, thank you for that additional information. Yeah, so then I strike that portion of my motion to just then only include my earlier recommendation to the building department to go ahead and explore options for the outbuilding
All right, thank you.
restroom.
Understood.
I second that motion.
Okay, so there's been a motion to approve the multi-generational facility with, again, the recommendation that the building department consider options to enhance the out parcel restroom facility. And it's been seconded. Any additional questions, comments from the board? Any additional questions, comments from the audience? Patsy, can you please call the roll?
4.
4.
4.
4. Thank you, Patsy. So that project's approved, and thank you for your time this evening, and I look forward to seeing it progress through additional approvals and come to fruition. It looks like a very, very nice addition to that neighborhood. Thank you for your time this evening. Okay, so we have a couple of folks interested in becoming part of the Community Appearance Board. That we haven't had a dual applicant interview process in a while, so do we do these one at a time, or can they just come up and we can ask them?
Kind of at your pleasure as to how you'd like to do it. I mean, they both have to be interviewed, of course, and then
Yes.
the board needs to separately, make a recommendation as to both of them to the council as to whether or not to recommend them to be on board.
Well, if it's agreeable to the applicants, I would just assume just have you both present and we can ask you questions, and consistent questions to make sure we ask the same question to each applicant. We normally don't have a litany of questions we ask, but I want to make sure at least you'll have a chance to answer the same question that the other one is posed with. Well, first I want to take the time to thank you for your interest in serving the Community Appearance Board. And I want to remind the board members present that, throughout the interview process, what we will be determining is whether we're going to make a recommendation to the city council that the potential board members and applicants are assigned to the board. That's something the city council does ultimately. So Yep, please.
Going to have some questions for you.
So it's, just make sure I can be real bad with names. It's Mr. Jeffrey Zurcher?
Zerker, correct.
Zerker, okay. Thank you. And Marlene Woodside.
Yes, sir.
All right, well, thanks again. I appreciate you both being here. Just simply because you're listed first, Mr. Zerker, would you like to just tell us a little bit about yourself?
I've lived here in Cape Canaveral since 2016, and we moved here from Lakeland. Lived in Florida for quite a while. Can you get closer to the phone? I'm sorry. Is that better? Yep. Okay, I'm sorry. Normally they tell me I have to tone it down. Gosh, I'm a big fan and advocate of this city. We live here and we work here in Brevard County, but we live here in Cape Canaveral by choice. I think it is the best place to live in. I wouldn't trade it for any other city or area in Brevard County. I have a real interest in the appearance and the welfare of this city going forward, and the amenities and the basically, would like to be a part of molding some of that. I'm getting a little tongue-tied now, but if you have any other questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that with us. Ms. Woodside, a little about yourself?
Sure. I'm not quite sure, like this gentleman, how to start, but I have been on the Culture Leisure Board prior to this for some years. And I have to tell you, when this was the Beautification Board many years ago, I was on it and chaired it at that time. So that was, I think, in 1989, when my family was transferred temporarily to California on the shuttle program. But in any case, I love Cape Canaveral, always have. My interests are mostly in the arts, and this is such a reward to me to see the arts becoming more and more important in our town. I have to tell you just short story that even makes me so much more want to be more active. Rocky and I, I think 3 years ago or maybe 2, took a group of artists from a certain organization drives around Cape Canaveral to see if they would relocate here for very good reasons, for their benefit. And of course the arts, we want to push even more so in our city because of the quality of life the arts can offer. And we must have spent the whole day driving these people. And do you remember this? And then they said they'd get back to us, and I'm sure Rocky spoke with them, but I hadn't heard anything. And so I called, and one of the people said they did not want a Cape Canaveral address. That absolutely broke my heart and made up my mind that this town is going to top them all. And so I would really, really like to be on your board, and I hope you accept me.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing those comments and thoughts. Another question, I'll let you go first this time. Any part of the city that when you drive by it or you see it, you're like, wow, besides for City Hall, because that's too much of a softball. Besides for City Hall, any other parts of the city, residential or commercial that you've seen lately, that you thought, wow, they got it right. This is what the city needs to be doing more of, when we talk about, harmony and
Right.
further project development.
Actually,
and redevelopment.
we're doing it with the former presentation of the multi-generational. We're doing it there. We're improving, of course, in every way. But to me, of course, the arts, of course, but landscaping covers a lot of sins. It truly does. I don't think I'm answering your question completely, but I can't choose one particular area. It just didn't seem quite right. And then prejudge it when I know for a fact that the right kind of landscaping, as I said, drive down Miami and all you see are big tall trees and bushes and so forth, and behind those, who knows, it can't be all good. So I think that there's just so much that can be done with landscaping. Did I answer that okay?
I think you answered it just fine.
Okay.
Thanks, yeah. And I think you're right, that landscaping is a very important component, and that's why we always have generally a landscape plan, especially when we're looking at a commercial or, project of this magnitude. Mr. Zerker, anything to share there with terms of what you like, or even things you don't necessarily like,
There's not a lot that I don't like. I like the fact that you've got the entrances to the city keyed pretty well so that it's identifiable. The pedway I think is outstanding. I hope that we expand it in the upcoming years. When you're going down towards the Cocoa Beach Pier, and you tell when you run out of Cape Canaveral, because everything just sort of goes when you have this wonderful walkway with the solar lighting that sort of ties everything in, and you can tell you're in Cape Canaveral, not somewhere else. And some of the things that have been done here recently with the city parks, some of the logoing and things like that I think have done a good job of identifying that. I think we're sort of I would call maybe some of what we're doing the end of the beginning, and now we're getting into going forward with a plan. It looks like we have a pretty good plan, and I'm excited about being a part of that.
I like that description and at the beginning. Yeah, and it's interesting you note that on Beachside there, south of the city, there is a quite noticeable transition. And in fact, you may not know, but there's a little enclave there we refer to as Avon by the Sea that's not actually either Cocoa Beach or Cape Canaveral. Mm-hmm. So that's where all of a sudden you see, the 7-story developments and everything. And then when you get into Cocoa Beach, you do get a little more pedestrian friendly, and the redevelopment of Ocean Ave, our friends there have done a nice job. But that little enclave in between, there's a definitely noticeable difference that there's no home rule there. I'm going to let the board members present any questions to our applicants if you'd so like to.
If anything right now, I'm sorry. No specific question.
I noticed in the boards that you're interested in, Mr. Zerker, looked like you had planning and zoning as one of your interests as well. If that's in fact your primary choice.
I filled that out quite some time ago, actually, before I even really knew about this. I'm actually prohibited from being on the planning and zoning board because my wife is on it.
I see.
So,
I got you.
I guess you can't,
Okay.
have two people. Although I had somebody describe, I think it was David who described to me this board, and I really liked it. He said planning and zoning is the cake and that this is the frosting. I thought that was a good way of putting it.
I'll take that. I'll take that, yeah. So, and hopefully seeing the board in action through, one of our reviews has helped kind of cement the kind of things that we look to do. Anything to share in terms of your interests? I know you mentioned the cultural interest there, and, that's for sure noted on the Culture and Leisure Services Board. And it is good to see that you've got some past experience at the Beautification Board. I know that when I first joined this board in 2004, I think it was, as an alternate, I believe that was one of my interests as well. It was a long time ago, though.
Yes. Well, Mr. David over there convinced me as well by telling me what you all do, and I'm very, very impressed with it. I just really don't know what else to say other than you're doing a great job.
Any questions? No, okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we recommend to City Council that both Ms. Woodside and Mr. Zerker be appointed to the Community Appearance Board, if I can make that in one motion?
Sure.
Yep, okay.
I second it.
Okay. So there's been a motion to recommend to City Council that Ms. Woodside and Mr. Zerker be appointed to the board, Community Appearance Board here. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Well, thank you again for your time. I appreciate you taking the time to not only see our meeting that we have and the business we conduct, but also to chat with us and share your interest. All the best and your recommendation to the City Council. Thank you. Anything else, Mr. David? Any what's happening? What's coming down the pike?
What's happening? Todd, anything that we need to talk to the board about on what's happening in the city?
You got the big one already done.
Okay. Try to put a little icing on that cake. Yeah.
What about the Harbor Heights thing that you mentioned last time?
Oh, is that the telecommunication antennas?
No, it's something you're going to build at the entrance of Harbor Heights there on North Atlantic for the port?
Harbor Heights and the port. Oh, the facility.
Right.
There's a Ask Safety, which is a cruise line training facility. We got an email last week, Patsy, that they are pulling the plug on that project. So that is, my understanding is they have closed on the property, so they own it. So I'm not sure what their plans are at this point for the property, if they're going to try to sell it or what. But they've decided that there was some challenge. That's a tough site to develop.
Right, yeah.
And I think once they got into it and really started getting into the engineering, it was just a little too tight. If in my view, that's kind of where they were coming from. So, let's see, other projects that you've seen. The hotels are all moving forward. You can see them going. We're actually talking to Mr. Bogger about the second.
The Spring Hill Suites. Was it?
The second hotel on his piece of property.
Oh, okay.
Now, you haven't seen that.
No, okay.
You've only acted on the first one that's going up behind Zachary's. That's the one that you've acted on. There's a second one between Zachary's and that hotel on the site. There's some vacant ground there.
Oh, I was thinking maybe because we've seen, there's the Spring Hill Suites and then there's one further.
There's
west. That was
Spring
an
Hill
earlier
Suites that's under
application.
construction now.
That's also his too, right?
There's
Both of those?
another one just to the west of Zachary's.
Yep.
And that will be coming to this board for consideration. And that, other than that, I think all the hotels are marching forward. They're moving right along. My understanding is that they'd like to open up probably, let's just say January 1 would be a good date for them. I think that might be a little optimistic, but that's what they're shooting for. Both that one as well as the dual brand, which is going on behind Homewood Suites. They're about neck and neck. They're all running about the same.
And I see the Golf and Gator.
Golf and Gator is
looks like
coming
moving
right along. Yep. We just got an email from them today or in the last couple of days about some additional parking that the owner's been able to locate. So that's a good thing. It's that
can
can
be
at
pretty
its
tight back
its
there.
peak times, we don't want parking problems for neighbors. So that's a good thing.
They expect to get that operational in time for the high season in a few weeks,
Yeah.
or okay.
Yeah. Anytime you have 6 boats in
It'll be a big draw.
it gets a little crazy.
How about the distillery?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah. I don't know. Is the bottom line.
You'll have to plan a site visit.
I'll tell you what I will do. I'll tell you what I will do, Patsy, if you can help me out with this tomorrow. I will send them an email, because I've had several people ask me that. I'll send them an email and see where we are with it, and I'll make sure I forward any response I get to the board to see where we are. But they're almost there. I mean,
what I
they
thought,
just have a little bit of work left to do in the inside. They haven't called for their final inspection yet, so I know that's not happened. But they're close. They're close.
Alrighty. Well, thank you. I appreciate you. It's always good to hear what's happening after a couple months go by.
Yeah.
It hasn't been too long since our last meeting. Sometimes we've gone months and months. So.
You know what, though? I think one of the first or maybe the second meeting I sat in on, and at risk of embarrassing myself, maybe I should know this, What happened to the multi-use apartments, businesses on a North Atlantic across from the,
Yeah.
I just was so excited about that and just thought, how cool.
As were we. We were very, I mean, that is exactly what we wanted to see. That was a perfect example of a nice multi-use project. As a matter of fact, Mr. Morley and I met with the owner not long after that meeting that we held here. And what our understanding is that after some additional geotechnical work, some soil borings, the owner determined that the soils were not as good a quality as he initially thought, and he was going to have to do a significant amount of additional foundation work. It was going to jack the price up quite a bit, and because of that, the project was not financially feasible. So that was what we understood. Now, there may have been, I'll just leave it at that. Yeah.
Yeah. So proceeding, well, actually, that's just privately owned anyway, so it'd be up to the person to find out what's going on with the quality of the soil and so forth. So, you know,
Did I miss
what
anything,
good
Todd?
is it
Was
gonna,
that-
I mean,
that-
can anything be built there? I mean.
Oh, yeah.
But just
And-
not something that was, what was it, 5 stories or 4?
Yeah,
it was
65. It was 65
Yeah,
feet. So it was a serious building.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't see a copy of the geotech report. You know, I'm not saying this was the case here. I have seen in the past where those type of things are used in negotiations with buying properties. So you know, there's all kinds of possibilities that could have been. So I'm not saying that was that's the case on that property. That's what it was reported to us.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second it.
Okay, all in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.